The Buffalo Sabres believe. The Florida Panthers might be inevitable, and Connor McDavid is doing stuff that we haven't seen since the Cold War. All that and more on tonight's edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Good morning or good evening, hockey fans, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network featuring your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of all the night's action in the NHL, and there was a lot of it tonight. We are, of course, available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And a reminder that our friends at FanDuel sponsored today's episode. They brought it to you. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. I write about hockey for a website called Yardbarker, and I hang here on Locked On NHL Game Night a couple nights a week alongside professional hockey play-by-play TJ Shalat, who is with me tonight. And this is the only hockey podcast currently openly advocating for a Division I hockey team at West Virginia University. So newly minted Predators minority owner Nick Saban, notably from West Virginia, puck appreciator Pat McAfee, make it happen. All right, that's it. I'll let it go for tonight.
I think Morgantown would love a hockey team.
I really think they'd get behind it. And now I have a platform to push for this. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to guilt trip anyone who's rich and can donate money to make this happen. TJ, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you? I'm getting ready for the holidays.
Yes, looking forward to it. I'm obviously in a festive mood, and I Hanukkah is over. I'm Jewish, but this is sort of like a nice little in between, right? It's an ugly Christmas sweater. It's not really ugly. It's Star Wars, and it's got the Hanukkah colors. So covering all bases here.
You can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. Although, the Battle of Hoth, that was biblical in its own way.
Sure, there we go. They ran into some trouble in the Battle of Hoth. A couple of other teams ran into trouble in frozen ponds tonight, and that included the Ottawa Senators, who, as our buddy Brandon Pillar, and we'll talk with him in a minute, told us they just can't beat the Buffalo Sabres, and Buffalo actually apparently can't lose to anybody at this point. 7 straight wins now for the Buffalo Sabres, who win 3-2 in overtime tonight, and this is a first for me, TJ, featuring Buffalo as the #1 team on an episode, and I'm thrilled. I'm excited to do it. Here's the thing. I was very, very harsh on Buffalo at the start of the season, like really harsh on the Buffalo Sabres at the start of this season. So folks might be like, well, he doesn't want to highlight his failures. But au contraire, as a diehard New York Jets fan, this is giving me hope right now. This is hope that maybe, just maybe, if the Sabres can do this one day, the Jets can as well. How about the Sabres? Bowen, Byram, 3 points tonight, all primary, 2 goals, including a very sneaky OT winner. And TJ, the Sabres are now at actual 500, not just NHL 500. They are actually have won half of their games. The Buffalo Sabres are, dare I say, I don't know if I say a wagon, but those players right now, they believe.
My word of caution to the Sabres fans out there, don't get too far ahead of yourselves. This is still Buffalo, and things tend to be crazy when it comes to the Sabres. But yeah, 5-0 since firing their GM, Kevin Adams, who I know when he was hired wasn't the most popular decision, but it looked like maybe he had things going there after a year or two, and he made some good draft picks, still made some head-scratching trades in there, but since he's been gone, 5-0, and I question this. We talked a little bit about it last night with Eddie on last night's pod, just simply about, when you talk about like the Quinn Hughes trade, leaving Vancouver, they went on a run. All of a sudden, it's kind of like everybody's on their best behavior because, they're starting to trade big pieces, or, we just got the boss fired. So is it a little bit of that, or are they really a team that's starting to turn the corner? And does Lindy Ruff have them playing their best hockey? It sure looked like it tonight.
The irony, they did. They looked really good tonight. This was not just an issue of maybe a dead cat bounce, if you will. This legitimately, they looked really good tonight. The way that they played on the puck, the grit, the grind, all the things that we necessarily don't talk about with the fancy stats side of stuff. They showed all of that as well tonight. And the one thing I'll worth noting, the irony of this Buffalo Sabres core, who one of the big criticisms of Kevin Adams was his sort of over attachment to his own players, and that all of a sudden he gets fired and they win 5 in a row and make Kevin Adams look awfully good in unemployment. I mean, listen, it's early, you're right, but that is quite a storyline right now.
Yeah, in politics, they'd call that a lame duck, right? Somebody who enacts a policy and then gets voted out of office, and then all of a sudden their successor takes over and kind of gets all the credit for all the work that they put in. And that's what it's looking like right now. I know it's a 7-game win streak, and that's certainly something to hang your hat on, but it is still December. Let's see. I'm just very tepid with them. I look at this game tonight. Ottawa had a couple of chances to win it. The overtime goal, as pretty as it was from Bowen Byram, I don't know what Brady Tkachuk was doing on that play. He saw Byram cut to the far wing and then all of a sudden stop skating. And as, coming into the zone, Byram got a perfect pass. And if Brady Tkachuk would have just stuck with him off that give and go, he probably doesn't get a clean shot off and they don't win the game. So as much as Buffalo's been playing well, I think they got an Ottawa team that was a little sluggish here tonight, but you play the teams that are on your schedule and you move on from there, and they're 7-0 in their last 7. I can't take that away from them. I don't want to sound like negative Nancy. So all the Sabres fans out there that are listening to us, I promise I love you guys. Just be careful, because I've been in this situation where you think you've got it, you finally crack the code, and it only hurts worse down the line if that doesn't happen.
In their defense, they've also been in this situation a couple of times as well over the course of these last 15 seasons. Let's talk about another team who similarly, I think their fans had hoped 2 years ago they had finally cracked the code. That, of course, didn't happen. The Detroit Red Wings win in overtime as well tonight. Come from behind win over the Dallas Stars. Of course, Dallas has been excellent so far this season. In particular, if you look at their last 25 games, some of the fancy stats are starting to catch up to some of the other stats as well. The possession numbers weren't great for them to start the season, but Detroit, the thing is, the firepower for them continues to really carry them. Dylan Larkin scores the final 2 goals to call game in this one. Moritz Seider, another 2-point night for him. A couple of fun stats. I know you've got one that ties into one of these. So Detroit is currently -2 on the season in goal differential, despite being at the top of the Atlantic Division. And I was doing some research on this going into the game. So obviously they won again, so their pace has improved. But going into this game, they were playing at a pace slightly below 100 points. If you round up, it would be 100 points. The last time that we had a 100-point division winner was the 2018-19 season, the lowest division winning point total in this era of realignment. It was the Nashville Predators, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Dallas Stars, coached by Jim Montgomery that season. So worth noting, the Atlantic Division, not only is it wide open, but we might see something that we almost never see, and that is a 100-point or worse division winner.
Yeah, I mean, they're the only division winner that has a negative goal differential. And again, it's only -2. So, I mean, what can you really do there? Montreal in second place there in the Atlantic is -1. And then, you look down at third place. I think when I last looked, it was a +22 for Tampa Bay. Yeah, it's +22 for Tampa Bay. So that's just that Atlantic Division. And I know we're going to talk about a couple more teams in the Atlantic coming up. But yeah, this one, I mean, this was the Larkin game, right? I mean, he scores 2 goals in 3 minutes and 36 seconds, 1 to tie the game, 1 to win the game. That's the ultimate definition of putting the team on his back. Mo Seider with another good game. He's got himself a 3-game point streak as well. Detroit, they look like they're getting their stuff together. They beat a very good Dallas team that's, 13-2-3 over their last 18, and is certainly going to be a playoff team in my mind. So we'll see what happens, going forward there. But Detroit starting to really sharpen their swords and get ready to go.
We'll give Brian Fisher of Locked On Detroit Red Wings the final word on this one.
Red Wings go into the Christmas break first in the Atlantic Division, winning against their toughest test yet in the Dallas Stars, and they were a tough test. Red Wings came out so super well, aggressive on the forecheck, winning puck battles, getting chances. Had a very nice first period, but in the second period, Dallas was, as Todd McClellan put it, patient, and then began to capitalize and turn the tables on Detroit. And from the second period on, it was all Dallas, and the Red Wings gave them a lot of opportunities with kind of penalties you wouldn't want to take against a team with a top 5 PK or power play in the league like Dallas, but they were resilient. Mentally, they did not break, and a beautiful through the legs pass from JVR to Dylan Larkin tied the game late in the third period, 3-3, and then the captain again in overtime pulled that puck back and a nice release using a defender as a screen, won it for Detroit 4-3 in overtime against the Dallas Stars.
I know we have to move on, but real quick, just want to say the JVR Fountain of Youth has been giving me life all season. Dude has been, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it seems like every night he makes at least one really big play offensively.
Yeah, he's been doing that his whole career. I mean, he's never been the superstar. He's never been your A-list type player, but he has been such an important piece to almost every single team he's ever been a part of, even going back to his days in Philly. You know, the New Jersey native getting it done.
Speaking of Jersey, what's going on with the Devils? They still can't score without Jack Hughes. 2-1 loss tonight to the New York Islanders. And as everyone predicted, the goal scorers tonight in this one were Brett Pesce, his first, Simone Holmstrom, his seventh. Okay, that's a little better. And Adam Pelech, his second. 2-point night for Holmstrom. Islanders get the win 2-1. Devils struggle to solve David Rittich, who stops 31 of 32. Having a really nice season for Rittich, backing up the Islanders net, considering a year ago he had numbers that would have fit in the Cold War era. Let's hear from Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders.
The New York Islanders get a much-needed and hard-fought win over the New Jersey Devils, 2-1 in regulation, ending the Islanders' 3-game losing streak. David Rittich, the backup goalie, stepping up and doing a great job in the absence of Ilya Sorokin, and the game winner to Adam Pelech, who had played a strong game defensively and stepped up to get the game-winning goal. The Islanders still having trouble scoring without Bo Horvat, but that's why Rittich stepping up, a goal and an assist from Simon Holmstrom, and just an overall strong defensive performance by this team, enough to get it done. Islanders back on track and on a positive note heading into the break for the holidays. For more in-depth daily coverage of your New York Islanders, check out the Locked On Islanders podcast.
TJ, real quick before we go to break, are the Islanders for real?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't. As much as I want to have faith in Patrick Waugh that he can kind of keep them going, I just don't know that they have enough gasoline in the tank for the rest of the season and a deep playoff run. I don't know that they have that depth.
All right, and scale of 1 to 10, I think the Devils are now 8-12 since the Jack Hughes injury. He's obviously been back for the last two. How nervous are you about the New Jersey Devils?
I am a little nervous. You know, I want to see how prolonged this scoring drought continues to be, even with Jack Hughes back in the lineup. Look, understandable when he's out of the lineup, they completely just kind of froze. But it's going to take a minute for him. Yes, he got back in and scored in his first game back, but it's going to take a minute for the rest of the team to kind of gel after missing him for some time. So I think they're in a little bit of shell shock with his return. If that continues, then I'm definitely going to jump up. So right now, in terms of nerves, I'm probably at like a 6-7. If they lose a couple more, you know, if they lose 3 out of their next 4, 3 out of their next 5, then I'm probably jumping up to an 8-9.
At a 6-7, I see what you did there. We got to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about the Panthers wagon. That is, they're back. They're the movie, the horror movie villain, and the Panthers, they are so back. Right after this here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Our show brought to you in part by our friends over at Monarch. The holidays are amazing, but they can get overwhelming fast. Travel, gifts, parties, year-end expenses. It's really easy to lose track of your money this time of year, and that's exactly why Monarch has become such a game changer for me. If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you have got to use Monarch. Rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, simple dashboard. The holiday spending category is a lifesaver. You can see exactly what's left in your gifted travel budget in real time. I live 5 hours from my family, so travel budget is pretty important. In minutes, you can check your net worth, link all your accounts, keep track of contributions before deadlines, and it's great for couples. Shared dashboards, shared goals, and if you were, wait, how much did we spend conversations? Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, so I probably took too much time up on those 3 games in the first segment. I'm going to try to do a little better here in segment number 2, but man, it's tough. We had some the good games were good, and even the games that weren't very good had great storylines in them. How about the Panthers? 5 unanswered to end this game against the Carolina Hurricanes, all in the third period. No empty netters, 3 Sam Reinhart assists, all in the third period. 5 different Panther goal scorers, including 2 defensemen. The Canes dominated the first, but only led by 1. They were a little better than Florida in the second, led by 2. But then the Panthers dominate the third, 5-2. They take the lead and ultimately get the win. And this, by the way, Florida now having won 8 of 10. This feels like the story between Florida and Carolina, TJ, is that Florida's A game is just that much more dominant than Carolina's A game. Carolina showed their A game in the first period of this game, and they only led 1-0. Florida's A game produced 5 goals in one period. Discuss.
Yeah, when you talk about this is one of the best rivalries in hockey, going back to, their playoff bouts over the last couple of years, and Florida just always seems to come out on top because their style of play, the Paul Maurice style of play, is just such a difficult style of play to go against. And Rod Brindamore's style of play, it's just not coherent with beating a Paul Maurice style of play. Look at this game with those 5 goals. I mean, you're getting contributions from Florida. Nico Mikkola, Kunin had a goal, Jones had a goal. You expect Lundell to get on the score sheet. You expect Sam Bennett to get on the score sheet. You expect, 3 assists from Reinhart. But everybody's chipping in right now as this team moves forward. Of course, they still don't have Tkachuk. Marchand had a quiet night tonight. I think he only had an assist as well. On the other side, I think it's more about what Carolina did wrong. They just don't seem up to the task defensively. And I know they're hurt. If you're the Hurricanes fans out there, you're listening, you're probably like, we don't have Slavin. We don't have Martinook. We don't have Jarvis. But those are all still relatively new injuries. And only one of them is a defenseman. And this team defensively is just so weak. So it's not like, all of their injuries are coming on the blue line and they're playing AHL guys out there and just getting lit up every night. They're letting go of their systems when they get a lead. They're getting a little bit too cocky and a little bit too loose, which is odd because that is not the way Rod Brindamore is. And I guarantee you those conversations in the locker room after the game are not fun to be part of.
Couple of really good division rivalry games, by the way, tonight. Colorado and Utah. I know this one's not a huge rivalry yet, but it has potential to get there. Colorado gets the win 1-0. How about this? There was only 1 point on the night. It was an unassisted Sam Girard goal off of a turnover he forces just outside the red line. And man, Scott Wedgewood, I would never have pegged this guy to have the season that he's having, especially in relief for Mackenzie Blackwood, who has been out at varying points this season, battling multiple different injuries. How about this? Coming into tonight's game, .920 save percentage, 15-1-4 record. It's hard not to say I was going to say he's the best backup in the league, but those numbers are better than backup numbers. Those are starter numbers this year, which he's had to do because Mackenzie Blackwood, who's also been good, has been out quite a bit.
Yeah, the lumberyard, as they're affectionately known there in Colorado. I mean, look at Wedgewood. He's won his last 3 games. He's helped the team earn points in his last 4. I mean, that's more than you can ask from any kind of backup to go with the stats that you just quoted. So, I mean, that's truly a 1A, 1B setup there. And on the other side in tonight's game, Vitek Vanacek, not to really look at him and kind of, poo-poo on him. He played outstanding for Utah, and this is a big confidence builder for them. They hung in there in a very tight, very defensive battle, a goaltender battle with one of the best teams, the best team in the NHL. That's certainly something to build off of as you go into the holiday break here. Come out on the other side with some fire.
Let's give the final word on this one to Zach Maselli, Chris Maselli of Locked On Colorado Avalanche.
The Colorado Avalanche head into the Christmas break with a victory 1-0 over the Utah Mammoth, and there's not much more to say for this one other than Scott Wedgewood, a 32 save shutout for him. He continues just to be exceptional this season, and the questions around should he at least be considered for this Team Canada goalie position, or at least one of them, continues. And moments like this and performances like this only strengthen his case. He was spectacular tonight. It really begins and ends with him. This was a dogfight. This was a tough game. Utah was up for the task. They wanted to go in the break with a victory themselves. They were playing hard. They made life difficult, as usually is the case when Utah plays Colorado. but it was a lone goal by Sam Girard, of all people. His second goal of the year on a breakaway, puck bouncing, goes backhand and scores the goal. And for all you trivia nerds out there, it was a 1-0 game, the only goal scored unassisted. I don't know how many times that's happened, but I'm willing to bet it's not a lot. So yeah, the Avs are feeling good going into the Christmas break with a win. This win and the 2 points gives them 61 points on the season already. And those 2 regulation losses are all they have. Continues to be a really good season for the Colorado Avalanche.
Sure does. And I bet you have to go back to the 90s to find a lot of those 1-0, 1-point games like that. Nashville and Minnesota, real good one tonight. The Predators looking a little better lately. Brock Faber scores his 7th to open the scoring, but the Preds back-to-back power play goals. And as Elliot Friedman noted, nobody in Nashville wants to see Ryan O'Reilly leave town. A 2-point first period for him, goal and a primary assist. 2-2 in overtime. Steven Stamkos calls game. And Nashville cooling off this Minnesota team a little bit more, though they do still get a point out of this one. What's the bigger takeaway from this one? Minnesota starting to cool a little bit, or maybe Nashville starting to figure things out after another nightmarish start to a season?
I think it's going to be the Minnesota side. Nashville, we expect to probably go on some runs here, maybe win 2, 3, 4 in a row, but that's going to be pretty much it. On the other side, Minnesota cooling off. That really shakes things up because they're in a very difficult division there with Colorado. Utah's kind of lurking right behind them as they're trying. I think Minnesota's in 3rd in the division right now, trying to work their way up. They're cooling off big time. I mean, just the last 2 games for them outscored 8-3. And even though Quinn Hughes got on the score sheet again, he's got another point now, has 4 points in 6 games for the Wild. That's great, but he'll take the wins instead of the stats, and they haven't gotten it done here. So I think they just need to reset. If there's one thing we know about John Hines, he loves taking those underachieving teams like he did in Nashville, like he did in New Jersey, and getting them going and making them playoff ready. So I expect them to have a strong second half. So that's why I think them falling off a little bit here is a little bit more, that carries a little bit more weight than Nashville getting hot. Because I think at the end of the day, Nashville is still going to be Nashville and near the bottom of the division come the end of the season.
TJ, before we go to break, I want to talk about Edmonton and Calgary, a 5-1 win for the Oilers tonight in the Battle of Alberta, one of the most heated rivalries in the NHL. This actually felt like a game that Edmonton would have lost a month ago, and instead they're firing on all cylinders in the month of December. Lethal Power Play has another monster game, 3 goals with the man advantage tonight. Connor McDavid, 5 assists. Edmonton had 5 goals. Can't do any better than that. Hat trick for Leon Draisaitl is almost an afterthought as McDavid is on a scorching pace. 31 points in the month of December. He has been held without a point once. It was the opening game of the month, an Edmonton shutout loss, and he has had more multi-point games than 1-point games since. I present to you Connor McDavid.
Unbelievable. 8 points in his last 2. A goal and 7 assists. He's getting it done with the helpers, which, when you think about superstars, you think about the guys that are scoring goals, and he can do that too. But right now he's focused on making his teammates better with those 7 assists. By the way, this is his 8th 3+ point game on the season, which is just unreal. We're not even into 2026. This guy, he is truly elite, and he needs to be, the general sports world needs to start acknowledging his prowess the way us in the hockey world do. I mean, this is something that should be transcending the sport, how good he has been. I mean, not only this year especially, but just in his entire career. There are so few guys that come out as highly touted as he was and actually turn into that exact type player. I would say Sidney Crosby is probably the last one before him, maybe an Austin Matthews in there as well, as those 3 guys were really the ones that everyone said were slam dunks and actually became slam dunks. But this is starting to transcend hockey right now with how good he's been.
No kidding. All right, so I've got some fun ones coming up in the final segment. We've got a couple of stoppable forces who met a couple of movable objects, and we'll talk all about that coming up in our final segment on Locked On NHL Game Night. First, though, we'll take a look at our sponsor today, FanDuel. proudly bringing to you Locked On NHL Game Night. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. Just ask the Jets in that loss to the Saints. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. After Brock Purdy's first touchdown pass on Monday Night Football, I knew he was in for a huge night. Should have bet on it. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown scorer, drive results, totals, and much more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, so we got to power through some of these. Got a lot of games left to get to, but again, this is number one in the Stoppable Force meets Movable Object series. The New York Rangers and the Washington Capitals. The Rangers coming off maybe their worst performance of the season in a 2-1 loss to Nashville. The Caps had lost 5 of 6 coming into this one and allowed 5 goals 3 times. Through 40 minutes, it was all Washington, but the score was only 3-2. Part of that, Igor Shesterkin, outside of one goal he might want back, had played really well in this one, and maybe he still has a debate about one goal that did get called a goal. The Rangers went from struggling to possess the puck to taking over for long stretches in the third period. Taylor Raddysh with a multi-goal night against his former team. He had 3 points from the Rangers' bottom 6. Vincent Trocheck, same stat line. Alexis Lafreniere finally doing something. A goal and an assist tonight for him, redirecting the game winner into the net. And then just a fun one, Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault, former USNTDP teammates and line mates at Boston College, line mates, both with a point in this one. The first time the two had ever gone head-to-head at the NHL level. And by the way, the final score in this one, the Rangers somehow scored 5 goals in the third period. Again, just took it over. They win 7-3.
Yeah, just a couple of quick points about this one. A wild departure from the last time these two teams played back in October. That was a 1-0 final in favor of Washington. So here we are getting 10 goals in this one, granted most of them in favor of New York in this one. And, you know, props to the Raddysh brothers. Darren Raddysh had himself a night last night with 2 goals for Tampa Bay. So they're continuing their strong play here before they get together inevitably with family for Christmas. So props to them. You know, this was a game that I don't know how many games tonight. I haven't counted. We've seen a flurry of goals. When you talk about Florida's 5 in the third period, we're going to talk about Vegas coming up, not to, you know, shed too much light on that. And now New York. I mean, it just seemed like goals were being scored in bunches in single periods all night tonight. New York gets the win.
Yeah, and that was true in our next game as well. Toronto and Pittsburgh. It's another Stoppable Force meets Movable Object game. The first game in the post-Mark Savard era. I'm all for accountability, but Toronto is beginning to look a bit like a hybrid version somehow of both the Predators and the Rangers from last year, which, not a compliment, not a good comparison to have. And unlike either, they actually did do something. They fired somebody, just not the head coach. And in the first game, they respond. 4-point night for Willie Nylander. Matthias Maselli draws back into the lineup and scores a goal. Max Domi with a really pretty disgusting goal in the third period to give Toronto the permanent lead. Added a couple of empty netters. The Leafs break a 3-game losing streak. The Penguins are 1-5-4 in their last 10. Yikes.
Yeah, that's a tough stat line. But, you know, Pittsburgh's they'll figure things out a little bit. They got, I don't want to say robbed, but they thought they had a goal to start things off, which really set the momentum. It was ultimately called back for goaltender interference. So I think that really deflated their balloon a little bit, and they could not really just get back onto that same momentum, that same confidence train that they were on. But maybe, you know, for Toronto, maybe they're just trying to follow in Buffalo's footsteps and just start getting rid of some people. And maybe it just kind of prods the cows a little bit, gets them moving. But the Leafs have beaten Pittsburgh in all 3 of their matchups this year. So that's certainly a team that they wish they could probably play a few more times. And poor Nylander, 4 points on the night, and it's going to go completely overlooked. On any other night, that's your number 1 star of the evening, easily the best performance on the ice. And then you look up at Edmonton, they've got a hat trick. They've got McDavid putting up 5 points. So poor Nylander, I want to give him a little bit of time. It was a great performance by him.
Yeah. Let's move on to Philadelphia and Chicago, rematch of a Stanley Cup final from 15 years ago now. Oh man, that feels weird to say out loud. Don't do that. Okay. Yeah, that feels weird to say it out loud. Chicago without Bedard, by the way, looks exactly how folks would think they look. They're now minus 12, 20-8. They've been outscored in the 5 games without Connor Bedard. Only 3 of those 20 with the net empty. So 17 goals with a goalie in the net in 5 games. Chicago just couldn't muster much tonight. This is always one of my favorite things to look at. The Flyers played a very mature brand of hockey, which I think is very impressive considering their talent level. They did not allow a single Chicago high danger chance, according to Natural Stat Trick, in the third period of a game they were only leading by a goal in. And Trevor Zegras with another point tonight, 37 points in 36 games for Trevor Zegras, looking like one of the best acquisitions of the offseason. And the Flyers, hey, man, they are in a playoff spot right now. I don't know if this is going to hold. I still can't decide who I buy more between them and the Islanders, but boy, am I impressed with Rick Tocchet.
Yeah, he's got these guys clicking. And, he's working to their strengths. He's working around guys like Zegras, Konechny with a 2-point night tonight as well with a goal and an assist. He's working around guys like Tippett, who had a tally last night as well. Some of these younger pieces that are kind of not the Matvei Michkovs, of the team, because you don't want to be solely dependent on that one guy like Chicago is. Look what happens. You take Bedard out of the lineup. Also tonight, they were out in Nazar. You take him out of the lineup, you really have nothing. And you can see Rick Tocchet is looking at teams around the league, Jersey. When you take out one of the main players, somebody has to step up, and you can't just expect them to step up. You have to put them in the position to step up and be good. And he's doing that with this team right now. What scares me a little bit for Chicago, not only can they not really score, but Spencer Knight was one of the top goaltenders through the first 2 months of the season, has completely fallen off the table and is just not the same goalie that he was a few months ago, even a few weeks ago. So not only can Chicago not score, they can't get it done on the back end defensively or with the goaltending. So it's rough sledding ahead until Bedard comes back.
I don't know where Chicago stands right now, but real quick, I will throw this stat back out there. Chicago has the last 5 straight years been 32nd in the league in 5-on-5 high danger chances generated per 60 minutes. That is a rough stat to have 5 straight years. Vegas and San Jose, this one, speaking of rough stats, this one was ugly early. 5 first period goals for the Knights from 5 different players, and it's not necessarily everybody that you would think, yeah, sure, you get your Mitch Marner in there, you got your Mark Stone, you got your Tomas Hertl, Colton Sissons and Brett Howden throwing in goals as well in this one. Macklin Celebrini would score his 19th. It's the 3rd straight loss for the Sharks, who are starting to look a little bit closer to what we thought they would look like. Vegas ends a 3-game losing streak. They've been having a tough run of things without Jack Eichel and Shea Theodore, who are both out for the moment, but Vegas gets the win tonight, 7-2.
Yeah, right now I think it's San Jose's goaltending that kind of let him in on this one. Askarov just did not look good. He's chased after 15 minutes. Then they bring in Nedeljkovic. This is already, the score at this point is 4-0. Askarov gives up 4 goals on 16 shots. They bring in Nedeljkovic. He only sees 10 shots for the final 45-ish minutes of that game, and he still gives up 3 goals on just 10 shots. So wow. I don't think, no matter what Macklin Celebrini, who did score tonight, no matter what Tyler Toffoli, no matter what those guys did, you're not going to overcome subpar goaltending from both your goaltenders in this one. If it was maybe 4-0 and, Nedeljkovic came in there and held the fort, maybe they could have come back in this one. But with that performance, just 3 goals on 10 shots over the course of 45 minutes, that's rough. That's really hard to battle back from.
It's a weird night when our second to last game is Habs Bruins. Normally one you'd think to be at the very, very top. This also featured a 3rd period explosion. 4 goals in the 3rd. Noah Dobson and Lane Hudson with 3-point nights for the Montreal Canadiens. 5 unanswered in total to get this one. Kind of a combo game. The Bruins definitely let Swayman down on a few, and Swayman let the Bruins down on a few of these. That's a combo, an easy way to have sort of a bad combo night, and Montreal gets a blowout win against their arch rivals as a result.
This game felt like old school hockey, not only because, there's a lot of fighting in this one. I think there was a total of 68 penalty minutes in the game between the two teams. They both, Boston, I think, had 36, 32 on the other side for Montreal. Not only did it feel like an old school game because of that, but there was so much open ice. It just looked like, when you're watching like the college game, or you're watching an Olympic game with a team that maybe isn't the most hockey based team, you're playing someone who's new to the IOC in hockey. There's just a lot of open ice. There's a lot of mistakes that are made. if you're a goaltender in this game, sorry. That's just kind of the way it goes, because Swayman did not play terrible. I mean, despite, putting up, there were a couple of goals against him in this one. He played pretty strong. He made a number of layout saves, a couple snow angels as well, but it was just one of those things where defensive breakdowns were prevalent on both sides, a lot of open ice. There was incredible passing back and forth. That kind of exacerbates when the defensive breakdowns are happening out in front. It was just a fun game to watch from start to finish if you're a fan. Probably a terrible game to be a part of, even on the winning side in this one, because there's a lot of tape to take back to the locker room and assess, even if you're the Canadians in this one. It was not a very well structured and good played hockey game, but Montreal gets the win.
Folks should go check out those Boston goals to see what TJ is talking about. Montreal left a lot of space on those goals. Seattle gets a pretty important win tonight, in the sense that right now every win for them is pretty important. They opened up a 3-0 lead over the Los Angeles Kings after a scoreless first period, all coming in the second. The Kings would battle back. They'd get the next two, and they actually hit a post with the empty net with 15 seconds to go. Could not get the win. Seattle 2-1 since the weirdest press conference of the season. First time winning back-to-back games since a week before Thanksgiving. First time winning back-to-back games in regulation since mid-November. Real quick, TJ, Seattle with the win over LA. Maybe the Kraken still have some juice.
Maybe. I mean, they're going to have to get healthy. They still don't have McCann. They don't have Schwartz. They don't have Montour. They don't have Dunn. What stuck out to me in this game is after they fell down 1-0, it only took them 11 seconds to even that game. They're not a team that's going to mope around after somebody scores on them in the first period. They were not going to be a team that's going to allow 5 goals against them like San Jose did earlier. They're going to get right back on that horse. They did it here tonight, and then they ultimately end up taking the victory. So I think they might end up, continuing to rise in the standings a little bit, but I think they're a long shot for the wild card. Seattle, they got to clean up. They got to make some moves this offseason to really just fortify that team. But for right now, you got to be happy with this win. They played really strong in this game.
Winning without Brandon Montour is huge. They were unable to generate much without him when he was out earlier in the season due to personal issues. Folks, thanks for tuning into Locked On NHL Game Night. We're off for the next few days, but make sure you subscribe and follow the NHL pod to get all the latest episodes. We'll be back. Me and Shukri Wrights will be back on Saturday as the NHL season resumes after the holiday break. I'm on social media if you want to give me a follow and chat with me about hockey, the radio spiel. And TJ, what is your handle?
At TJ_Shallot, CHILLOT.
Very good. Folks, thanks again for listening. If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, I've got good news for you. There is a Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for you. We have one for every NHL team. This show, Locked On NHL Game Night, will be here for you each and every night of the regular season and playoffs, wrapping up everything that happened in the NHL, including on very busy nights like this. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show if you're watching on YouTube. We want to see your thoughts on the games in the comments section. Best performance of the night, Bowen, Byram, Connor McDavid, Willie Nylander, you tell us. Vinny Trocheck, Taylor Radish?
Wedgewood.
I like that one. That's a good call. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For TJ Shallot, I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening and for watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day.